Okay, so I just realized I have a stain on the shirt, but anyway, it's a great day. I am, as per usual, excited for today's lesson. It's a little bit different than maybe the title would allude to. We're talking inflammation reduction, but today to kick off, it's going to be a little bit different of a focus than maybe what people are expecting. And just like we did with the Happy Adrenals series, we're going to do a whole series on inflammation. We're going to work through all of the specifics, the real practical things that you can do, the action steps. But we got to put a little mindset spin on that shit too, right? So what I want to do is I want to run down the biggest key factors in reducing inflammation, and then we're going to talk about today's focus. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be discussing the big daddies, right? And that is manage stress, of course, always. And that's emotional stress, physical stress, all of that. We're going to talk about good sleep. That's a constant. Talked about it in the adrenals segment as well. We're going to talk about hydration, eating enough, and then in this realm, there are a lot of foods that we can also work into our diet that can help balance out inflammation. Again, balance inflammation. So it's a balance in what we can add. And those of you who have been with me for a while, you guys know I'm not big on the whole, diet focus, but I definitely think that there are things that can be beneficial to include in our diet, right? So we're going to talk about all that stuff. But what we're going to talk about today, this is where the unexpected twist comes in, is that anything we do requires enough time. And that is the thing I see a lot of people give up on. Understandably so. This is not going to be one of those Zooms where I'm like, you don't try hard enough. There's no discipline at all. That would never come from my mouth, period. Because my thoughts on discipline. It's a crock of shit. But I think what it's important is we stop and we talk about, we've been pretty tip heavy in these Zooms the last few weeks, but none of it matters if we're causing the biggest stress of all, and that is we're hounding down results. We're dying for results to be evident and to be right in front of us. And we jump from thing to thing, and this could be the problem, that could be the problem. Let me try this supplement. Let me try that diet. Let me try doing this, doing that. Shiny object syndrome and not enough time ends up screwing us, even though it's rooted in something pretty important, which is wanting to feel better. Like, I'm not saying anybody's doing that intentionally to be like a jerk, but it is the number one thing that me and the coaches deal with every single day is helping people stay the course, helping people not just say, screw this, it hasn't happened fast enough, and so it's not going to happen. Because it's understandable that that would be the feeling, especially when you're dealing with really frustrating shit like this, right? So you might have come here for this lesson thinking, I'm going to get some tips on inflammation reduction, and you will. But we're going to start off with a little bit of mindset direction first before we kick off this series, because I think it's important to get that out of the way before we even talk about practical steps. Okay, so let me open the chat. This is I did make this chat just for you, Alexis. But now, when it comes to doing anything for your body, for your health, the hardest part is that I don't know what really instilled the quickness in us, where we think a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month should be a time that we should see some kind of marked change. It is so different for everybody. And what that change is, or those results are, is so different for everybody. But you can't do something with a deadline, because who created that deadline? That's just our own seeking control. That's our own, like, well, logically it should have happened by now. So if it hasn't, it's not working. But that's just making us feel more comfortable with why something's not happening, which still inadvertently is us trying to have control. Because if we can have control over the quote unquote failure, we still feel in control. If we can control saying, well, this isn't working, let me try something else, that still is control. It's just you screwing yourself over, but it feels like control. Anyone been there before? Especially with the whole shiny object syndrome, or like, I'm going to throw this at it, I'm going to throw that at it, because something groundbreaking hasn't happened within a certain amount of time yet. And it ends up being that it doesn't happen then because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in that way. So you don't do something for a few weeks, be like, I must have messed it up, or it ain't gonna happen. Look at your lack of results as a reason to give up, because then you just wasted those few weeks. Our bodies don't recover fast, and not to they also don't get damaged fast either. You know how many people I talk to every day that had symptoms for years before anyone ever took them seriously? Or if you feel like where you're at right now is maybe the sickest or the lowest you feel like you've ever been, that didn't happen overnight, right? People don't usually come to me because they just, they've been feeling ill for a couple days. They come to me usually when it's been really frustrating and it's been a bit. So our bodies don't, oh my God, there's a fly in here and it's driving me nuts. Sorry, ADHD. I can't not shoo it away. 'Tis the fruit fly season. Ugh. But you can't look at your lack of results as a reason to give up, because you're going to end up screwing yourself. So when you put a time incentive on things, like I'm only going to do this for this long because then this has to happen, when our bodies are not quick to heal. Unfortunately, I wish I could change it. Anyone tells you differently, they're just full of shit. This is why I don't talk to a lot of people in the health industry, because no one can back up their claims that they can make something quick happen. Our bodies do not get damaged quickly. They don't heal quickly. It takes a bit. This whole bullshit of like, you should lose 1 to 2 pounds a week. That's healthy. I don't know who made that up. But whoever they did, they tried to corner the market and make a lot of money, because it's all rooted in absolute bullshit. It is so different from person to person. And that's just, we're talking weight, right? I'm not even talking about actual health, because nobody's here because they sit around eating chocolate all day. So like, for you to actually cause a change in your inflammation, in your systemic inflammation that's probably been raging for so long, and to expect that to happen because you're not eating gluten for a few weeks, like, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment. It has to be a systemic approach over time, just like the damage that was done or what led you to this point was systemic over time. They have to match. As annoying as that is, because I am not immune to that either. It took me a long ass time to get any kind of results or anything. The only time I got results is when I threw out the time incentive. I said, I'm going to learn what I'm going to learn to do what makes me feel my best. I'm going to learn to enjoy the skin I'm in, no matter what size I'm at, because that's going to change over time. But like, I'm not going to wait till that changes to feel validated in my own skin and feel good in my own skin. Like, why am I going to go time without living? Those days have to pass anyway. You take the time and throw it out the window. And I know it sounds hard because you're like, I don't want to waste my time. But if you're doing things that are for your health and you're feeling better, how is that a waste? If you're looking for a certain set of results and expecting that within a certain set of time, then yeah, you might feel like you're wasting your time because nothing's proving to you that it's worth it. But you're not going to change the biology that way just because you want it to happen faster. Trust me, I'm the most impatient person in the world. I'm the person who puts their food order in and they're like, oh my God, how long? Like, I'm not saying any of this with like some air of superiority or morality that's like, you guys should all be doing this. Like, I'm saying it from a place of, I get it because it's hard. It's not easy or my human nature to be this way. I had to remember this to be able to get the results that I've gotten. So let me see. Make these cysts shrink yesterday and get pregnant today. Right. And it feels like if I can just throw action at that, if I can try this, if I can try that, if I, or if I could wish for it to happen faster, well, just come. What's the saying? Oh my God. One of my friends says, shit in one hand and wish in the other and see which one fills up faster. It's a very eloquent New Jersey saying. But I don't know if it's from New Jersey, but it sounds on brand. So, but seriously, in such few words, Mindset is the hardest. Thanks, diet culture. My monthly picks and measurements literally cause me so much dread. Well, let's talk about that one because I don't want any dread coming from that because it's not a grading, right? It's not a this should be X amount of results should be happening by X amount of time. Because again, who decides that measure? It's not some divine syllabus out there that's like, you should have X amount of inches lost or X amount of pounds. It is biology. We are so unique, each and every one of us, that we cheapen our efforts by assuming things will happen at a certain time, even though it's understandable why we do that. I do always keep in the back of my mind saying it takes time. And that's also why you got to be okay with however it looks. I know that sounds insane, right? Like it sounds very radical. And I'm not saying you have to be totally fine with PCOS or Hashimoto's or anything causing your body to change in a way that you didn't ask for or pursue. We are allowed to not feel great about that. But if we're waiting to get to a certain size or a certain number before we start to feel okay with ourselves, that's when the clock ticking gets louder and louder. And then that's when we screw ourselves out of actually seeing change. We're trying to reduce systemic inflammation. Trying to lose X amount of pounds doesn't really correlate, right? Because the inflammation isn't there because the pounds are there. So chasing one arbitrary thing just leads us, like we're just chasing our own tail. And who's going to keep doing that long term? No one. You're just going to feel disappointment after disappointment. So removing the time, removing the need to see change, to feel emotionally better, easier said than done, I know. But that's really the key to things being able to be consistent over time. So we don't just give up because, like, what's the point? I wrote a whole bunch of stuff here. What else I want to say to you guys that's valuable? Okay, so in my list of things that contribute to inflammation, as I mentioned in the beginning, stress was one of them. And there's so many different sources of stress, but maybe some of you guys do realize this, but I don't even think people realize the full extent of how much stress, like background stress, they have on themselves when there are things like food guilt, size is not, your clothes not fitting, because ones you wore 5 years ago, like don't fit you at all anymore, seeing old pictures of yourself, checking out the mirror and feeling like you should see something way different. All of those different situations compound more stress. And stress is the number one trigger for systemic inflammation. So there are a lot of stressful things in our lives we can't necessarily work on, right? Like you have a stressful job. I could sit here and tell you get a new job, but like you have bills to pay. I'm not going to ever be the one that's like, just quit, like it's reality. You got stressful stuff at home, or you're stressed about anything in this day and age. There are so many things that we can't necessarily work on, but what we can work on is the pressure we put on ourselves to have a certain result at a certain time. Now, how do you do this but still make sure you're staying the course, you're staying on track? Are you making changes? Are the changes rooted in health? Is there a logical reason hormonally for the changes that you're making? Stay the course. Do you feel even a tiny bit better in little areas that you maybe never even paid attention to before? Because now you're not looking for some big, massive transformation to prove to you it's worth it. Stay the course. It's really hard to do because no matter what we're going to do, you could go buy some diet plan you find online, right? No matter what you do, there's never going to be someone telling you, hey, it's working. It's working. Keep doing it. So what are we looking for here to decide if it's worth the consistency or not? You're always going to be yo-yoing back and forth, and what's going to be worse is your inflammation. This is why I wanted to talk about this before getting into more of the hacks and the physical side of like, here's what to change, here's what to do. Because what good would any of that be if we're still sitting there thinking it's conditional, where it's still like, well, I'll do that, but only if I have a certain amount of results or a certain amount, I'll do it for a certain amount of time. Understandable, but unhelpful in the long run. So this is why baby steps, this is why we do baby steps, because they might seem stupid, right? They might seem so small. They might seem like, well, what difference is that going to make? I feel like garbage, you know? But when we're trying to do massive things just to prove to ourselves that we're going to get massive change, that leads to disappointment. Our bodies do not require us to have some massive overhaul. The time has to pass anyway, and all this shit's going to take a while anyway. So why are we going to stress ourselves out, which is counterproductive to what we're trying to do, trying to rush it, trying to have some big change? Baby steps. You master one, you move on to the next. You master the next one, you move on to the next. It's a domino effect. That's the one part of it. And then the second part of how you're able to stay that course is, this is going to be so cheesy. Oh my God, this reminds me of like back in the day. I did like a really cringy MLM, like in my early 20s. And like everyone did in the 2000 teens, I feel like. And I heard this line all the time, but it's so true. What is your why? So corny. What is your why? Why are you doing this? Why are you trying? Even if you want to sit there and say, you know, I would not love it if you said this, but even if you're like, I want a 6-pack by the summer. Okay. We got, maybe book a call with me, but why? Why do you want that for the summer? Why is it important to you? Why do you want to feel better? I wrote a bunch of questions here just to be dramatic, right? But that's your homework for this week. Next week, we're going to hop into the logistics. And this is a really quick Zoom tonight, but next week, we're going to hop into the logistics of how to go about reducing your inflammation. But I want you to really take some time this week and focus on longevity, on sustainability. And how we do that is, I want you to write out about your why. Write it on, print it out, write it on a piece of paper, whatever you want, but post this shit somewhere you're going to see, you're going to look at. I know it's like not groundbreaking advice, but it's important still, right? Why are you trying to get healthier? Why don't you want to feel like shit anymore? Who does it affect? What do you want in your future? Like, why is it important to you that you live a different life than you have been in this realm? You know, why do you want to stop pain and discomfort? And that sounds like a stupid question, because like, who wouldn't? But define it. Get real with it. Make it a real thing. Invest in wanting these results. Don't be so afraid that you'll never get them that you don't put your all into getting them. Because who the hell wins a game if they go into it thinking they're going to lose already? Again, disclaimer, I'm not like, I know why these things are this way. I'm not saying that you think this because you're an asshole, you know, but work on it. Like really dive into that a little bit further this week. You know, what does it matter if you do this from a place of health? Why don't you want to get results that you lose a month after? Why do you want to not have to think about this shit for the rest of your life? You don't want to have to be on a diet after diet after diet forever. Really get into the why. And then maybe it makes it a little bit easier to not sit there with a punch clock on your results, feeling like everything you do is just like, oh my God, is it working? Is it working? Is it working? Because who could live like that? No one deserves to, right? So yeah, this is a short but sweet one. I think it's good based on attendance. I said I planned it correctly, but I appreciate you guys being flexible with me and moving the date of this Zoom. Like yesterday, I was having some issues with my blood sugars. It was definitely a lesson in not being hard as hell on myself, because I was definitely in a place of like, why won't my blood sugars cooperate? Like I literally had to monitor them the entire duration of when the Zoom would be. It's a constant job. So I appreciate you giving me the flexibility to hop on in a much better headspace today to be able to focus and deliver this message. And I'm excited to tell you guys more of the practical steps we can fix inflammation next week. But I'm even more excited to hear how this goes, really diving into your why this week. I rarely give you guys homework on these Zooms, but this one's definitely important. And I hope that this was something you guys had to hear, and I hope it was helpful. So text me. We can keep convo going on about it. I'm here for you. And yeah, love you guys. Bye.